30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and Young Guns Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in on what is a hot, downright hot Friday in Nashville, Tennessee. We have a busy show. Let's get right into it. The Predators have said goodbye to Matt Duchene. They have decided that addition can be by way of subtraction. Our Mark McGee joins us live to talk about it. Guy, this was a hefty commitment that the Preds made to get him out of Dodge.
Well, in a lot of ways, but they're going to pay him $9,333,333 over 6 years, as opposed to paying him $24 million over the next 3 years. So it's pretty good from that standpoint. One thing they've got to do, it's 3 years after his original contract with the Predators has been over, they still have to pay him $1.5 million a year. So they'll save a little bit on the cap this year, a little bit less on the cap next year, and if they pay him, then a little bit even less on the next year on the cap. But then they have to start paying him. So then it becomes just a salary thing to pay him directly. Not that they aren't paying him when they're saving money on the cap, but it's spread over 6 years now, 3 years after the original Predators contract.
So Mark, Barry Trotz, all the way back to our sports speaker series, had been saying, I want good people. I want people that are a positive in the locker room. And the evidence was overwhelming amongst those who were insiders that Matt Duchene was anything but that.
Oh, yeah. And ironically, we talked to him in the concourse on Wednesday and suggested maybe this would be the next move he should make. We didn't think it was going to be a buyout, I don't think. But, he didn't dismiss us out of hand. So he kind of figured something like this was going to go on.
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting we had out in the concourse. So
it was very, very informal, but it was like off the record. But still, it was interesting his reaction.
So Matt Duchene is now free to go anywhere. Certainly,
he's on unconditional waiver.
Yeah, certainly.
Unconditional.
Certainly his reputation precedes him. And so what is the market for Matt Duchene? Because this is not all about goals scored or production. There's more to it than that.
Well, I think so, but I think a lot of people will be looking at the goal scoring situation for him. He had a okay year this past year and had a really good year the year before. But he's not going to get $8 million a year anybody, because I don't think the money's out there that anybody's got from the cap space standpoint. But and they don't get named. Most people are going to be looking at him as a second line center. They feel that's where they feel like he can be the best for whichever team gets him. So they'll be interested to see from that standpoint. But right now, all the experts are going like, oh, and now we have a real interesting free agent market where they didn't think it was all that interesting before. It was a very lackluster one, but now that he's on the list, everybody's very excited about it. They think he's going to be the premier free agent pick right now. So, teach their own.
You gave me two names off air that are intriguing to me. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, Jonathan Taves is going to be leaving Chicago. He's been there forever. He had a decent year last year with a very, 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 very bad Blackhawks team. So does he still want to play hockey? Well, the Predators I think would have to be considered to be a playoff contender. Would you like to play for a playoff contender? Would you like to play in Nashville? Or does he want to hang up his skates? Nobody really knows for sure. He would, like we were saying, he would be a definite help for the Predators. And Tarasenko's out there as well. I've always liked him. I wouldn't mind them bringing him in as either. Those two names really pop out at me. After that, there are a lot of goalies out there, but they don't need a goalie. So,
yeah. Last thing for you, because I know you're running up against it. Between now and July 4th, do they have the Preds a significant free agent signing?
I think so, because they got the money to do it. They got $21 million in cap space now. So they had 19 at the draft. And I got 21 now. So I think that they've got money to spend. And I think I'm like Barry, and like Barry's saying the same thing I've been saying for a long time. They gotta find an elite center. Of course, everybody wants an elite center. It's not like you just pick one off the street. They've got to sign someone who's a number one center, who's a playmaker, who scores goals, who does it all, and an 80-point, 90-point guy that you can depend on every night. And they just haven't had that through the years. And now the 25th season's coming up. Now that's the time to do that. So if they find somebody, that would be a great deal for them. Yeah, I think they'll go after something like that.
Guy, I really appreciate your doing this on short notice. This is some big news.
No.
I happen to think it's addition by subtraction, and I'm excited about it.
He is very saying, I am going in my direction.
Yep, sure looks that way. Thanks, Guy.
No problem, George. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mark McGee reporting on a very interesting movement by the Predators. We have been hearing for a good year that something needed to happen in this direction. Barry Trotz has walked in, and he has eliminated two of the biggest distractions that people on the inside would tell you about. Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene. Now, what do they do on the open market as free agency begins? Only time will tell. Guy threw out two really interesting names to me in Jonathan Taves and Tarasenko, the former St. Louis Blue. David Wilson's alongside. Kelly has the day off, but that doesn't mean the show doesn't continue. So it's also a big night in the ATL.
It is, to say the least, George. Michael Soroka has been recalled to Atlanta, and he will start tonight's game versus the Miami Marlins, the red-hot Miami Marlins to be exact. They've also selected the contract of Charlie Culberson, sent Chadwick Trump back to AAA to make room on the roster. Left-handed reliever Dylan Lee has been transferred to the 60-day IL, but George, this is Soroka's first start at Truist Park since August 3rd of 2020. And last night, Jazz Chisholm returned to the lineup for the Marlins, and he said post-game after their victory against the Red Sox, this is probably what you're going to see in the National League Championship Series. That's what we're planning on it to be. Great series down in Atlanta this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be hotter than the blazes. Both Saturday and Sunday are day games. I thought about it and then said, I don't know.
Great pitching matchups that series. You're going to see Sandy Alcantara and Spencer Strider at some point, Charlie Morton and Yuri Perez, who's one of their best prospects. He can really throw the daylights out of that baseball. So great series of baseball down in Atlanta. George, James Harden's back in the news. He's opted into his contract for next year, but the Sixers are going to try to find a way to trade him. He exercised his $35.6 million option for the 23-24 season, but he's looking for a trade, and two teams have come up in particular that are looking to acquire Harden from the Sixers. It's the Clippers and the Knicks. So, George, what do you think about the fits for those two franchises for James Harden?
I mean, I can see it on the Clippers side. The Knicks have to do some maneuvering that I don't think is worth it. I'm not a big James Harden fan. I think he's kind of a dog, and I think if you hang around dogs long enough, you'll get fleas. He's not worth $35.6 million. He's a ball hog. He always has been, but he might fit in well with the Clippers. I can see that one. He's not worth 35.6, which is why he exercised the option, because he knew on the open market no one was giving him that kind of money.
You got to think the Knicks are really going to want to be players. They're desperate to find a star for Madison Square Garden. I don't know if Julius Randle can be your number one and lead you to a championship. So, that franchise is so desperate to get back to an NBA Finals, but we'll keep on moving.
Well, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
In all honesty, James Harden isn't a star anymore. He's a big name because of his past, but there's been very clear slippage in his game. He's not the star that he used to be.
Yeah. And if you're the Knicks, Portland's got to figure out what they're going to do with Damian Lillard, but he'd be a heck of a star for Madison Square Garden. They just need somebody that can lead that.
Pizzazz.
Yeah. You know, Randall doesn't do it for him. Then, yeah, they won their series in the first round against Cleveland, but against Miami, there was a clear difference between those two franchises. George, they announced the All-Star game lineups last night. A lot of guys getting their first selection. The Rangers, the most selections in MLB, they have 4 starters in this year's All-Star game. They got Jonah Heim behind the plate. Yandy Diaz is going to play first base for the American League. He's from Tampa Bay, his first selection. Marcus Semien is going to play second base for the AL from Texas as well. They got the whole left side of the diamond with Seager and Young. So good for the Rangers. Mike Trout in the outfield with Randy Arozarena and Aaron Judge. We'll see. I don't think he's likely going to be playing. He's out with injury, so we'll see a reserve player come in for that spot. And then Shohei Ohtani on the DH side for the American League. A lot of Braves, George, on the National League side. Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, and Ronald Acuna Jr. You got Freddie Freeman at first base, Luis Ariz, who's chasing a 400 average so far, going to get the second base nod. Nolan Arenado, the cornerstone third baseman in the National League for years, gets his 8th selection.
But is he really an all-star this year?
You know, the third base dilemma is really interesting because Austin Riley has not played well either. There has not been like a third baseman this year that you say has really stood out. I think Arenado's hitting about 270, so he's probably the best option right there, him or Riley. Wander Candelero of the Nationals has actually played really well, but, you know, the Nationals are not going to get that nod.
Not going to get the push from the home crowd.
Yeah, and the fan vote at least. Mookie Betts, hometown kid, 7th selection from the Dodgers. And then Corbin Carroll, who's probably going to be Rookie of the Year for the National League. An absolute stud, gets his first selection for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then DH came down to J.D. Martinez and Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's been hurt for over half the year, so J.D. Martinez gets the nod there, George.
The National League needs a win. God,
when was the last time they've won?
I think Nixon was in office.
There you go. That sounds.
I mean, it has been a while.
Well, when I look at these, there's a lot of star power here in the American League. You got to think Jordan Alvarez is going to make the roster as well. Mike Trout, Arozarena, Shohei, Seager, all those are studs. Not saying that the National League isn't studs, but you got power hitting for the American League and more contact hitting on the National League side, at least in my opinion.
You know what's really weird though, David? When I was growing up, the National League went through a streak where they won like 18 out of 20. And in the old days, what I loved about the All-Star game is that, in particular, the veterans in the National League did not want to lose that game. That was a big blood and guts kind of game in the 70s and in the early 80s. Sadly, a lot of that's gone away. And what you've really had are a bunch of power pitchers who come in for one inning throwing gas. The game's gotten kind of dull.
And it used to be where the winner of the All-Star game got home field advantage in the World Series. They've since eliminated that because the American League was getting the home field for so long. But we'll be seeing if it's any different this year. I think the Braves are going to give a couple pitchers in as well.
Game in Seattle?
Correct. So we'll see probably Bryce Elder going and probably Spencer Strider as well. So the Braves will be thoroughly represented. But the Texas fans, they've had a great year so far this year. They're going to have 4 starters on the American League side. So that's good to see. Final piece of news, George. This came out yesterday. We didn't get to it with the breaking news that we had with the Titans and Nicholas Petit-Frere. But J.J. Watt is joining the CBS booth this upcoming fall. He'll be an analyst on NFL Today. He will get a 3-year deal with CBS, and he'll begin week 1 of 2023. He'll be a great addition to that cast they have.
He's very popular. They may have to get a bigger desk because they got a lot of people behind that desk, but he's very popular. He has raised an absolute boatload of money for charity. He's well-spoken. I'll be shocked if he doesn't do really well.
You know, we've talked about this, and Kelly's mentioned it, how the role, it's different from going on the field to upstairs, but I could see him being in the booth for like an analyst role and, with a partner. He's just that well-versed and that well-represented, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. So he's an absolute stud who's a good representative of the game, as you mentioned. So I could see him moving upstairs at some point as well.
Hope it works out well for him. He's a good guy. After the break, we will begin what ought to be an interesting football kind of heavy show. University of Tennessee play-by-play voice Bob Kesling will join us. That is always fun for me. Some of you who really go back a long ways will know that Bob Kesling and I did Nashville Sounds baseball on a TV package back in the mid-'80s. So we've known each other a long time. That'll be fun. You may be wondering, okay, what's the angle on BGA football coach Jonas Rodriguuez? Well, it's not me just trying to be the good alum. Jonas was invited and coached, I guess it was last weekend, at the Manning Passing Academy. I want to hear what that's all about because I really don't know a lot, and most of you probably don't either. That'll be fun. We'll have 4 questions to the director sometime in the 3 o'clock hour, and then we will call it a week with Plaster Bet of the Day. Stay tuned. Bob Kessling's in the On Deck Circle. He will join us next. Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Now that the weather has gotten considerably warmer, there's not a better place to spend a morning or an afternoon than Riverside Golf Links. So you've probably noticed the weather has gotten a lot warmer, and that means a couple of things in Nashville. It means baseball, and it really means golf. And for me, it's a visit to Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. There are now 27 holes, including a 9-hole executive course. If you want tee times or more information, dial them up at 615-847-5074.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between, discover what Hit City has to offer. Spend your nights cheering on the Nashville Sounds at First Horizon Park with giveaways, fireworks shows, theme weekends, and more. Single game tickets are on sale now. Visit NashvilleSounds.com to claim your seat today.
So who said I can't be a golfer? Well, you know what? This is X Golf, located just down the road from the Fordyce Center in Bellevue. This is fun. It'll improve your golf game, and you need to stop in and check it out. 8138 Sawyer Brown Road, and who knows, I may get to 200 before it's all over. We're back. I've told this story before. Bob Kesling and I were both trained in our college years by the same person, the late Paul Lyle, who worked at WKDA and KDF in Nashville, and before that at the legendary WIVK radio in Knoxville. Bob obviously got trained up there. Paul did his best with me down here. Bob, I think it's fair to say he did better with you.
He did the best with his daughter, Courtney, who's just really doing great at ESPN and all those type things. But yeah, Paul gave me a break. It was amazing. I was in college and I was working for the old Knoxville Sox baseball team here at Bill Meyer Stadium, and And we were drawing about 300 people a night, and I was making about $100 a week, working about 80 hours a week. And I thought, if I got all the hot dogs I could eat, that was nice. But I put the flag up, took guys to the doctor, had to take the uniforms across the street to CNS Laundry. That's where Neil Ridley owned the team. And so he did the uniforms for free at CNS Laundry. And so anyway, I thought, well, if we do some advertising, get some more people coming to the games, maybe I'll get a raise more than my $100 a week. So I started writing little 30-second voicers, and I would call them into every radio station. That's back in the day when every radio station had a full-time disc jockey all night. And I would call them into the radio stations, to the TV stations, these little 30-second voicers about the game. And some of the stations would run them, and one of those was WIVK. And Paul called me out of the blue one day. I don't think I'd ever met him, and said that he'd heard they were running my reports on WIVK. I sounded pretty good. They were looking for a part-time sportscaster and wanted to know if I was interested. And I said, sure. So I started working mornings at WIVK, and then I'd go to school, and then I worked for the baseball team at night. And it was a great time to learn a lot of things about a lot of different aspects of sports and broadcasting and baseball teams and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Paul gave me a big break, and I still appreciate him for that.
Yeah. Do you ever stop? Because I know I find myself doing this from time to time. We've now both reached an age we probably never thought we were going to get to, and we have spent our professional lives in the toy department of life, sports. And for that, I feel incredibly grateful, and I bet you do too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, that every time I do a game at Neyland Stadium or all these other great stadiums we get to go to, I just kind of sit there and think, gosh almighty, this has been quite a ride, and how fortunate I am. George, first time it hit me, I had just started working for Jefferson Pilot, doing the SEC games on television, football and basketball. And so I was, my second or third year, they added a 30-minute pregame show. And so I was the host of the pregame show, and at that time wasn't doing play-by-play. I was just I was hosting shows and hosting the pregame show. Well, Tom Hammond was the principal play-by-play guy. He and Larry Conley just were a great team doing SEC basketball on TV. Well, Tom got called away for a NBC assignment. He's doing a lot of Olympics and horse racing, all that kind of stuff. And he got called away. And so Jimmy Rayburn, who was the executive producer at Jefferson Pilot, calls me and said, listen, Tom can't do the game on Saturday, so could you do the pregame show and the game? I said, well, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was Tennessee at Kentucky, Rupp Arena, Senior Day.
Yes.
Senior Day with Pelfrey and Farmer and Patino and those, that unbelievable team he had. Tennessee had Allen Houston. I'm sitting at midcourt. It was Kaywood Ledford, the legendary Kentucky announcer. It was his last home game.
Yes, I remember it.
And so I'm sitting there at midcourt. And so Kaywood and Ralph Hacker are sitting there to my left. John Ward is sitting to my right. I'm at midcourt, and my color guy that day was Dan Issel, the all-time leading scorer at Kentucky.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there at Rupp Arena with Tennessee and Kentucky warming up behind me, thinking, if I get hit by a truck going to the parking lot after this game, I'll be fine. I mean, it can't get much better than this. And George, that was one of those moments I just was pinching myself thinking, how cool is this? And how many people would love to be doing what I'm doing right here? And I better not take it for granted, and I better buckle down and do the best job I can. So that was a special moment. And I think that's really the first time it really hit me that we are doing something that, as you said, in the toy shop, it's just a lot of fun. And we're just so blessed to be able to do so many great things that we've been able to do.
Bob, I want to say I was like 23, and it was my first SEC broadcasters meeting. And John Ward was the president, and Kaywood was sitting to my left. And he looks at me and goes, so what's your story? And I said, Kaywood, I've been listening to you since I was 8 years old. And he goes, you had to do that to me? But those guys, I mean, they were the cream of the crop. I mean, it doesn't get any better than John Ward and Kaywood Ledford and Larry Munson. I mean, this league had 3 real heavyweights.
Yeah, well, throw Jack Crystal in there. I mean, he
Yeah.
was a guy that been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And, Kaywood was such a gentleman. I mean, he was a Southern gentleman. And here I am. I'm a young broadcaster. I don't even belong being in the same room with John Ward and Kaywood Ledford back in those days. And Kaywood, every time I did a Kentucky game for Jefferson Pilot, Kaywood would always come up to me, and I didn't even know if he knew my name, but he would always come up to me, and he would ask me, "Is there anything you need to know about Kentucky? Is there anything I can do to help you? Is there any?" And he didn't have to do that. But he was just such a gentleman and such a great broadcaster. And and Ralph Hacker had just an unbelievable voice too. I mean, he replaced Kaywood as the voice of the Cats, but both of them had such distinct voices that it was one of the best radio broadcasts that you could ever listen to with Kaywood and Ralph. I mean, it was just, it was magic. I mean, it really was. And Kaywood was really good. Kaywood was great, and Ralph was, up there too, and John Ward. So, we were blessed, George, to be able to kind of learn from those guys, and kind of, if you're smart enough. And of course, I got to sit next to John for 15 years and spot for him. So if you got any intelligence at all, you'll sit there and learn from one of the masters on how to do this stuff. And what always amazed me, George, John typed out everything. It was all scripts, and he had a clipboard, and he had all his notes on legal, on just stationary kind of stuff. I mean, because he was a lawyer. I mean, he got his law degree, but he never practiced law. But that's how he kind of prepared for a broadcast.
Right.
He would type out everything. He would type out all his notes, and he'd have pages and pages of prepared stuff. He might use a quarter of it. But he always talked about preparation, that you had to be prepared. And he always would tell us in the booth, and he told the same thing to Mike Keith when Mike was doing that same stuff. When I left, Mike kind of replaced me doing spotting and doing that stuff in the booth with John. And what he would tell you, it might be before a Tennessee-Alabama game, he would always tell you, I don't need you excited about the game. I need you prepared. And he would tell you that all the time. You better be prepared. And so that's one thing that's always resonated with me. And John would say when he got tired of doing the preparation work, then he would not do the broadcasts anymore. And so, because he knew how much, his law degree got him into the point where he knew about preparation and being ready to go in all situations.
Bob, as I hear all this, and obviously we've got some other reasons we want to talk to you, but I'm sitting here thinking of this statement. This is Ralph Hacker. He had that voice about him. He'd have been a great game show host.
Oh yeah. Well, he was a guy that he owned the radio stations there in Lexington. And so he knew everybody in the state, and he had such a great sense of humor. He still does, has a great sense of humor. So has a great sense of humor, and but he was a salesman. I mean, and he did a lot for really promoting Kaywood too. I mean, he put up billboards all over Lexington. Kaywood called the Cats and all that kind of stuff because it helped his radio station too. And, the one thing about Kentucky back then, too, WHAS had the broadcast, and then they had a separate broadcast that was the network. And so Kaywood was doing WHAS, and Claude Sullivan did the network. And Claude Sullivan, who also did the Reds games, he was an unbelievable broadcaster. So you had Kaywood and Claude Sullivan, and there was a big debate then, who was the best broadcaster between those two. And then Claude, unfortunately, died of cancer. And then Kaywood kind of became the official voice of the Wildcats. But a lot of great stories down through the years about great broadcasters.
The Bob, you'll like this one, and then we'll actually get to what we were supposed to do. Before Larry Munson died, I don't know the full deal, but he and my dad were very close from his days in Nashville. And so I was never George. I was always young Plaster. And so this last time I had him on the show, he's done about 15, 18 minutes with me. He's telling me about the movie club and all this stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
All of a sudden,
Oh, yeah.
He has this long pause and he goes, young Plaster, if you would have listened to me, you'd have made something of your life.
I could hear him saying that.
And I just sat there going, where the hell did that come from?
It was, Larry Munson was unbelievable. And Larry Conley and I were doing a South Carolina Georgia game. And this is back when Munson was doing the basketball games too. He at the end of his career was just doing football, but at this time he was doing both football and basketball. So we're at the old Carolina Coliseum, and there's a little right off at the end of the floor, there was a little room over there where they would serve you meals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so there's Larry Munson and Bob Fulton, the longtime voice of South Carolina, and he was another legendary broadcaster. So Larry Conley and I kind of wedge our way in there, and they're sitting there talking to each other. And so we kind of barge in there and we sit down, and of course we don't get a word in edgewise because Fulton and Munson are doing play-by-play on their latest prostate exams. It was one of the most months. Oh my God, I couldn't believe what they were doing to me. I'm telling you, it was. I wish I had a tape recorder because it was 20 minutes of just back and forth, and those guys were, it was awful, but just on and on and on. Anyway, well, so that was.
At least he didn't say, "My God, a freshman."
Yeah, that's right. He said some other stuff though. There was pretty dang.
Oh, believe me.
This is another great Munson story. Brett Hubbs tells this one. So we're there in Athens, and the press box there in Athens is nice, but the restroom facility is a little bit small, and so it's halftime. And so as soon as Munson signs off at halftime, he makes his way to the restroom, and he's trying to get ahead of the crowd, but he doesn't get ahead of the crowd. And there's several people in front of him. And Hubbs now is standing behind Munson in line, waiting to get into the restroom. So all of a sudden, everybody's kind of standing there, shuffling back and forth. And all of a sudden, Munson blurts out, "Anybody getting close? Is anybody getting close in there?" Oh my gosh. And can you hear Munson saying that? Anybody close?
Great moments in SEC football history.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So,
okay.
Clearly, this didn't start out the way either you or I thought it would. Frankly,
no, of course not. Never does.
It was a lot more interesting than where we are going. So let me ask you this. In a minute, can I go to a break and then get to what I guess I was having you on to begin with?
There you go. It's your show, George. Go ahead. You drive the bus.
Okay. Let me ask one thing, and then we will go to the break.
Oh, okay.
Where's last year rank for you on satisfaction and fun with some athletic teams that really achieved?
Well, I was fortunate to watch that football team just really continue to evolve into one of the most exciting and explosive teams in the country, and watching guys like Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman and those guys just explode on the scene was great. The basketball team had a good run, not as far as, of course, we all wanted them to go. And then having a chance to call baseball games on TV last year was a lot. You're talking about three of the best teams in the country. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun and very satisfying. And it kind of put the fun back in all of it. When the games are a lot easier to do when your team's playing well and they're winning. And last year we had a lot of fun and a lot of chance to call a lot of great athletes in great games.
I'm going to ask you about the Alabama game because I've got a feeling when you got to your car, whenever it was, an hour and a half afterwards, and, you know, people are still celebrating and there's just giddy joy. What was one of the first thoughts that hit your mind after it was all over?
What I thought was people are still talking about the 98 Florida game. They'll be talking about that game, the Alabama game, in 20 years and 25 years and 30 years from now. You know, young people that were at the game, they will be just talking about how special it was. And you know, a lot of times you have those games where the buildup is much better than the game itself. But this one was tremendous buildup, and then one of the best football games I've ever seen or been a part of. I mean, it was just – and the one thing about the game, it wasn't so much that one team lost it. It's the other fact that Tennessee just finally figured out a way to win the game. I mean, Bryce Young, he played like a Heisman Trophy winner in the game. I mean, I don't know if Bryce Young could have played any better. But Hendon Hooker made some plays down the stretch that kept Tennessee, you know, in a position to have a chance to win. So that was the other thing that was so satisfying about it. You had two great quarterbacks battling it out, and it was just a really exciting, well-played football game with one of the most unbelievable finishes you ever wanted to see.
Awesome stuff. We're going to have more with University of Tennessee play-by-play voice Bob Kesling. Bob, I'm going to do a live spot. This will bring back your radio days.
There you go.
This concerns the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, which will be in our city August the 4th through the 6th. And I've tried to be open with people. I've never been to a Grand Prix, but I've accepted the invitation on this, and I'm excited because there are a lot of people who have been in my shoes, never been to one, but in the first 2 years have gone to this event and come away going, wow, it's one of the coolest things they've ever seen. The music is incredible. They've got 3 days that's just simply wall to wall. And now the tickets are on sale not only for the 3-day weekend, but individual day tickets. If you'll go to musiccitygp.com, again, that's musiccitygp.com, you can start out in general admission and work all the way up to a ton of amenities for what ought to be a great weekend. We'll have more with Tennessee play-by-play voice Bob Kesling. I promise it won't be dull.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank & Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Family owned and operated for more than 2 decades, Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you are interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303. Again, that's 615-356-0303, or log on to alacofinewoodfloors.com. Alaco Fine Wood Floors, serving Middle Tennessee's hardwood flooring needs since 1995.
At Baird, we have a different slant on global financial advice. That global capabilities mean nothing without personal attention. We have investor relationships in 35 countries and market expertise in over 40 industry verticals, all to help make the most important investment connections of all, yours. Global financial advice with a client-first approach. It's the shape of things to come. Discover the Baird difference at BairdDifference.com.
You know, when the SEC Network did their tribute to great broadcasters of the past, they should have had the 15-minute tape that Bob Kesling and I just did. Bob, of course, the longtime play-by-play voice at the University of Tennessee. You know, I think we would have given them some stuff they didn't have.
Probably, but I'm with you, George. I thought that was just an unbelievable production they put together, and really put a great light on the guys that really helped build this conference. I mean, you go back and look at all the voice back when the games weren't on television, and those longtime voices needed to be recognized for just helping to build the passion and the excitement around this conference. Because you know, there were a lot of farmers on a Saturday afternoon riding around, listening to, having their headset on, listening. People huddled around the radio back in those days, listening to those great voices do those games. So yeah, we very privileged to be just a small part of this, George. But those are the guys, the Munsons and the Wards and down the list, and the Kaywood Ledfords. Those are the guys that really deserve a lot of credit for building the passion in this league.
Amen. Tell us something, Bob, about Josh Heupel that explains the level of success he's been having here.
Well, he takes a pretty complicated game and makes it pretty simple for his quarterbacks and his receivers. And he demands execution, and it's about reads. Now, I think his offense is set up that you've got to have a quarterback that understands the system. I mean, he's got to have somebody that operates the system, and he's very guarded about the system. I mean, every time that there's an opening on the staff, he usually promotes somebody from within because he doesn't want to disturb the system. He doesn't want to I guess you go back to the days of Tom Landry. You know, Tom Landry was very guarded about his system and how they did things with the Dallas Cowboys. And Josh Heupel is kind of in the same way. He believes in his system. I think the one thing he does, he instills plenty of confidence, not only in his quarterbacks, but everybody on the team. And he has them convinced, if you execute and you do the things that I want you to do, you're going to have great success in this offense. And it is, I sit there with Pat Ryan every week, and we try and on Fridays we get to talk to Coach Heupel, and we're trying to apply, you know, Pat, of course, he played in the NFL for 14 years. He's trying to pry some information about how in the world does Jalen Hyatt wind up running free in the other team's secondary and nobody within 15 yards of him? But Coach Heupel won't he won't give you any kind of clue on how it does it and how the system works and all those type things. But it is amazing just when he took over. I mean, the program was kind of beat up and confidence level was not very high, and guys were kind of licking their wounds a little bit. And he just changed almost overnight the whole direction of the program. And he changed almost overnight the the feeling within the locker room about, hey, listen, we're going to be good and we're going to have fun and we're going to compete and we're going to score a lot of points. And I think most fans were a little bit suspect at first. Oh yeah, okay, this thing worked great at Central Florida, but how's it going to do here in the SEC? And then suddenly, bang, they come out. And they're putting up big numbers against everybody. So he's a very confident coach in terms of he knows what he knows, and he knows what he knows will work if it's executed properly.
If Hendon Hooker hadn't gotten hurt, would he have been your Heisman Trophy winner?
I don't think there's any question about that. Now, the South Carolina game, as it turned out, when he got hurt, the game was, out of hand. And really, I don't think you never had the feeling in the second half that Tennessee was really going to be able to come back and win that game. And so I think he would have been deserving of that. The South Carolina game obviously would have hurt him a little bit, but because Tennessee would have lost the game. But I think he was the best story in college football over the last 2 years, just where he came from and what he's done with that team. So, and I think everybody liked Hendon Hooker from the fact that he was a quality young man. So, yeah, I was rooting for him. It was devastating when he got hurt, but I would hope he would have had a chance to win. I'm sure he would have gone to New York for sure, but you would have hoped he would have had a very good chance to win that award.
Yeah. When I watched Milton, even back in the Michigan days, early on, I thought that this was a guy who was trying to grab the sawdust out of the ball and hit 108 on the radar gun. And so I was skeptical, like a lot of people. And then all of a sudden I watch a little bit of it against Vandy here, but more of it in the Orange Bowl game against Clemson. Talk to me about what you see that they've tried to do to unleash this cannon of an arm.
Well, I think they've tried to tell him that you don't have to. These guys are going to be running wide open, in the other team's secondaries, and just hit them. Just throw the ball. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be there at 100 miles an hour. Just get them the football with some touch on it. And I think Hendon Hooker, he and Joe Milton had a special relationship. I mean, the fact that here's Milton thinking he's going to be the starting quarterback when he comes to Tennessee and gets banged up a little bit, and then Hooker takes the job. And you would think that Joe Milton would have been upset about that and would have pouted and maybe, entered the transfer portal, but he didn't. He stayed and he learned from Hendon Hooker. They developed a great relationship. And, of course, everybody knows the story at the Orange Bowl last year. Hendon Hooker was with Joe Milton every single day trying to make sure he understood what needed to be done. So I think Hendon Hooker has rubbed off on Joe Milton a lot. And I think that Joe Milton understands there's more to playing quarterback at Tennessee than just being able to throw the ball 70 yards in the air. There's a lot of things you've got to do. And I would be shocked if we don't see a solid, very good quarterback in Joe Milton coming up this fall, starting in Nashville on September 2nd.
I'm hopscotching all over the place, but this is fun to do. You and I talked yesterday about this panel thing that I've put together that both Philip Fulmer and David Cutcliffe are going to be a part of. Bob, you were there that night when they knocked down the national title door against Florida State. What's the memory that you'll never forget from that evening?
I just remember the reaction of the fans there at the stadium and the just overjoy that people had from finally winning that national championship. And that team in '98, I mean, they had a couple of squeakers that they had to get through. The Arkansas game, the Syracuse game early. I mean, those are games where they just found a way to win. And I think the fact that T. Martin, I think people respected T. Martin because he waited for his turn to get a chance to be the starting quarterback. And when it came, he took advantage of it. And it was just a very resilient team and just a team that people really pulled for. I mean, Al Wilson and all those guys, there were a lot of quality young men on that team. And I think there was just the relief that, I think going into the game, Tennessee was confident that they could win it. But, Florida State at that time was still Florida State. And, but just how they played and how decisive the victory was, it was very satisfying for Tennessee fans that night. And, of course, the celebration, I think a lot of it still even continues to this day. Every time you bring up the 98 team, I mean, just big smiles pop up on everybody's faces.
Bob, I remember the Preds were in their first year of existence, and they had a home game that night, and they decided to move it to 5:00 because they knew what was going to happen. They were not going to win the battle of going up against that game. I'm at the arena, and I'm watching, as Tennessee, it's becoming more and more obvious they're going to win the national title. And we sort of made the impromptu decision to do kind of a post game after all the hockey was over. I stayed on the air till about 2:00 that morning, and it was really cool. I mean, Tony Basilio should be proud of me.
Well, it's still a game that resonates. I mean, every time you ask anybody, what are your top 5 games? I mean, the 98 national championship game is in the top 2 or 3, still is. And why not? I mean, why not? I mean, it's just a game that everybody, winning national championships is a hard thing to do, and you don't get to do it very often. And so when you do it, you better enjoy it. So, and I think that's also what makes this run Georgia's on so remarkable. And Alabama, it's one of those things that it's easier to get there than it is to stay there. And the run that Alabama and Georgia's had have been remarkable. Now, Tennessee hopes maybe they're getting up in that realm of being able to string together some really big seasons back to back to back, but it's hard to do because you've got, injuries and who's your quarterback and all those type things that happen to you. And, each year it's a different team and a different set of challenges. And to get on a successful string like Tennessee had in the 90s, it's hard. And winning games is hard. And so you just hope that Tennessee is able to really build off last season and off the Orange Bowl and ride Joe Milton to a big-time season this year, which I think that's what we all expect they're going to do.
Okay, last thing for you. I think I'm right about this, but you may have to stop me. If I remember correctly, you were a student when Bernard King was there, right?
Yes.
Did anybody ever get him under control? I never saw anybody defensively cause that guy a problem.
Some people might argue with you about this, but to my recollection, I still believe Bernard King is the best basketball player to ever play in the SEC.
Okay, I happen to agree with you on that, by the way, just for the record.
Yes. Well, and his numbers will back it up. I mean, his double-doubles, how many times he scored 40 points. And this is in a day where, no three-point shot and all that kind of stuff. And the numbers he put up were he was unstoppable.
Yes.
And it was just, and he made it look so easy at times. I mean, he could just score on anybody. And I just think that, to me, he was the quickest jumper I'd ever seen in my life. And how he could you couldn't stop the guy when he got inside the lane. So, to me, Bernard King is still the greatest basketball player in the history of the SEC. I know some Pete Maravich fans and Chris Jackson fans and some other folks might debate that, and Dan Issel fans, but to me, it's Bernard King.
Yeah, it is to me too, because I saw him. I was in high school watching him, and I just was totally amazed. Nobody ever got a handle on him. Bob, you get your choice of 2 tickets to a future Cincinnati Reds game. That's what you ought to accept. Or best wishes for the upcoming season.
Well, I'm lucky because I can watch the Reds game. So I would much rather have a good season coming up. So give me that, George. Yeah. I'll take that.
Listen, they're going to win that division.
Well, I hope so. They're playing well. Now, my wife and I are getting ready to head up to Cincinnati this weekend to see a soccer game. We're going to the soccer game.
I love it.
And, we got a friend, Rob Braun. His dad was Bob Braun, who was this Regis Philbin of Cincinnati, on TV, and just this big personality. And Rob came down here in 1982 and worked at Channel 10 when we had the World's Fair. So we've been buddies since, and his wife, Jennifer, and my wife are really good friends. Well, his daughter-in-law now is one of the big, I think she's a CFO of the soccer team up there. So we worked out a date, which you work in our schedule. We wanted to go up see a soccer game because, they're really exciting up there because they're the best team in the MLS right now, or one of them. And so we said, well, we'll go up this weekend, pick a date. So they picked July 1st. So we're going up there, and the Reds and the Padres are playing.
Oh, yeah.
Taylor Swift is at Paul Brown Stadium for 2 nights. And then we got the soccer game, and there'll be over 35,000 at the soccer. Can you imagine what downtown Cincinnati is going to look like tomorrow night?
It'll be a zoo. Your best hotel option is Bardstown.
Lexington. That's as close as we could get was Lexington.
I believe it.
So anyway, we're good.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay, George. Always great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Same here, Bob.
Okay, talk to you, man.
He's a good one. Not only a very good broadcaster, but a good friend as well. University of Tennessee play-by-play voice, Bob Kesling, joining us on the show. After the break, we'll get Stat of the Day, which, given that I'm soloing, has got a chance to be a bomb. And then we're going to find out about the Manning Passing Academy with Jonas Rodriguuez, the head football coach at Battleground Academy. So stay tuned. We have plenty more coming. Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. This is my buddy and former Nashville Sounds PA announcer Eric Berner. I always laughed in the old days at Greer Stadium when I would walk in, Eric would immediately play my favorite song, Van Halen's Jump. But then I learned he actually has a real job with Rockcastle Wealth Advisors.
Yeah, George, that's what I do. I help people in the pursuit of making their money live as long as they do. Everybody's situation is different, so I use a customized and individualized, personalized approach to the person I'm working with. Old 401ks, retirement planning, insurance planning, inheritance planning. Those are things that people like to get some more information about.
One of the things I find is people don't even know where to start, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, so I can usually help people with an initial phone call or meeting that is a no charge and no obligation.
And I'll bet you have a phone number and a website.
I do, George. They can call me at 615-235-1058 or rockcastlewealth.com or Eric at rockcastlewealth.com.
Hello, this is Celeste Middleton, a State Farm agent in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I want to help my neighbors and local businesses be proactive and assess their risk before something unexpected happens. We want you to have a thorough understanding of your coverages to have the best protection when you need it. We can create a personal price plan for you. Our team has over 70 years of experience helping people in Middle Tennessee. We have an awesome team with integrity and provide honest and prompt communication. And we love what we do and genuinely care about everyone we work with at our office. Give us a call at 615-895-2700. Send us a message at celestemiddleton.com or walk in at our office at 803 North Thompson Lane in Murfreesboro. We would love to earn your business.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards, in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back in. It's time for Saturday on this Friday afternoon here in Nashville. George is all by himself. Saturday presented to you by the good folks at John English Antique Sports and Cards, located in Shelbyville, Tennessee. 204 East Depot Street is where you can find them. They're open during the week, Tuesday through Friday from noon to 5, and on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So give them a call at 931-492-4304. Let's head out to the land of sunshine, LA. Since 1920, there's only been one Los Angeles Dodger to record over 100 hits, 50 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases before the month of July. Can you name him?
Okay, there are some obvious suspects. One of those, and I'm just going to yap out loud here for a second. Mookie Betts is obviously one of those people you might want to think about. Freddie Freeman might be one you'd want to think about. In past days and times, Steve Sachs, because he would have had the stolen bases, would be one you'd think about. Wes Parker, really smooth hitting first baseman back in the 70s, was a guy whose name comes to mind. I get the feeling it's none of the above, so go ahead and just flat out show me.
It is Freddie Freeman. He has done it this year.
You know, he just got past 2,000 hits.
He did.
And obviously, I'm a huge Freddie Freeman fan, and I believe there's a real shot he can get to 3,000. I think he intends to play long enough. He's going to get 180 to 200 hits a year. So by the time he reaches 2028, we might have baseball's next 3,000 hit king. That's how good a career he's had.
He's definitely in Hall of Famer, in my eyes, at least.
Yeah.
One of the most steady players. He consistently hits 300 every year. He can roll out of bed and get you 2 knocks a night. So pretty special player.
I'm biased, but it's first ballot Hall of Famer, Freddie Freeman. Okay, so some of you are sitting there going, oh, George is just trying to peddle his alma mater, pump him up some. That's not totally the case here. Jonas Rodriguuez is the head football coach at Battleground Academy. He was invited to coach at the Manning Passing Academy, and I wanted to hear more about what that was like. So let's bring Jonas up. How are you?
Hey, George, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. How do you get selected for that thing?
I think you have to know the right people. I was fortunate to know Thomas Morris, who works for QB Country. His brother, David Morris, who played at Ole Miss about 20 plus years ago with Eli Manning, started QB Country. And Thomas runs the Nashville operation and trains out of BGA. And Thomas was kind enough to invite me to fill in for a spot.
So am I right? Somebody asked me this today who knew I was going to have you on. College coaches cannot be a part of this?
That's correct. Yeah. College and pro coaches cannot. Now, sorry, I'll correct that. Division III coaches and Division II coaches can. Division I coaches cannot.
Because of the
so there was a coach from Dickinson College, Georgetown College from Kentucky. They had coaches there because of recruiting stuff.
So in the Manning Passing Academy, is it just simply quarterbacks, wide receivers? Tell me a little bit about it.
So it's quarterbacks. I'd say about 80 to 90% of the kids there are quarterbacks. And there was 1,400 kids there, ages 8th grade to rising seniors. And there was about, I don't know, a few percent running backs, a few percent tight ends, and then, about 5 to 8% of the kids were receivers.
So you've got in the Manning family, the big three of Archie Manning, who almost won a Heisman Trophy at Ole Miss, was incredible in the late 60s and the early 70s. Of course, you've got Peyton Manning, and we all know what he's accomplished. Same with Eli Manning. Help me with this. Is Arch legally allowed to be a part of that or not allowed to be a part of it?
Well, Arch is allowed to be a part of it because they are able to have college quarterbacks come and work the camp, and then also do some training with Peyton and Eli and some of the other coaches there. So Arch was there. He didn't train. He had to leave early for a recruiting weekend at Texas. But you forgot to mention one important Manning who really is the maestro of the whole show, and that's Cooper Manning.
You tell Cooper I said hello. He's a piece of work.
He is. He's hilarious. He has awards for the coaches at the end of the session, and he runs the mic for all of the big sessions where the kids get to watch the college quarterbacks work out. So he's a trip. He was a lot of fun to witness.
Oh, I told him one time, I said, "You're a talk show without a signal." And he truly is. I really enjoyed it.
100%.
Yeah, it's probably been 15 years ago that I met Cooper, but I really, really enjoyed him. So kind of take me through what an average day at this camp is like, because we've all heard the words Manning Passing Academy, but we really don't know a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, one, it was great preparation for me as a high school coach for 2-a-days because we had 3-a-days there, and it starts in the morning. Kids eat breakfast, and then they have a session from 9 to 11 where they go through individual periods where they're working on certain parts of quarterback play and going through different stations with different coaches. And then you get in group sessions with receivers for the last hour, throwing routes and working on different pass game elements with the receivers. Kids eat lunch, a little downtime, come back and do it all again. Now, we were fortunate because there was a little weather that came through that cooled things down. But when I left Thibodaux, Louisiana, it was 111 degrees outside. So it can get pretty hot there. And then each day there's a segment where Peyton and Eli and some coaches work with the college quarterbacks, and the kids get to watch that, which was really cool. There was a viral video of Joe Milton throwing a bomb one night, which was neat. And then at night they play 7-on-7 for a good hour or 2 hours. And that's a lot of fun to get to compete and see those kids out there, because there's a lot of quarterbacks there who there may be other positions too, and you get to see them compete in a different setting because there's only one quarterback at one time. So it was fun.
So let's start with Milton, because there's a big question mark with him, certainly not about the physical skills, but in the past, he's been a guy that wanted to grab the sawdust out of the ball and just throw it 114 miles an hour, kind of a Aroldis Chapman on the football side. What do you see out of him?
I saw a guy who had really kind of tamed his strengths quite a bit. I mean, you saw a natural velocity that he has just effortlessly throwing the ball. So I think he's learned how to put more touch on the ball. I mean, some of the throws he made in these sessions were just truly impressive. I mean, amongst a group of great quarterbacks and guys with great arms, he stood out far and away.
Really? Strongest arm in that camp?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I think I talked to some guys who'd seen Anthony Richardson throw, who's got a great arm, and some other guys over the years, and said Milton has the best arm they've seen at that camp.
Let's run through some of the SEC quarterbacks that were there. You told me a couple of them yesterday. Let's start with the kid from Missouri.
Yeah, Brady Cook. He's got a good frame, good build. And actually, we have a kid from BGA on the roster there who's a backup to Brady, named Brett Brown. So I haven't had a chance to ask Brett more about Brady, but Brady was a nice guy and threw the ball really well. It looks the part. He kind of commands the room, and I think he's, going to be a really good quarterback this year.
And I think has been up till now kind of on the underrated side in the league.
Oh yeah, well, I think you've got bigger names out there that people are aware of, and I think a guy like that's going to come out of nowhere, and they might pick off some people there at Missouri. It's always a tough place to play.
Tell me about the LSU kids.
Both were very impressive. It was Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. Jaden Daniels, I didn't realize how tall he was. I'd always kind of envisioned him being a little bit shorter, but he's got a really, really good size. I mean, he looked to be 6'3" and threw the ball really well, great mechanics. And then the Nussmeier kid, the same. I mean, not the same build as Daniels, but he looked really good out there. So I think they've got two guys that they can count on. I think they played both those guys last year as well. So they're in good shape at quarterback. It looks like to me.
Jaden Daniels was recruited to Arizona State initially by Herm Edwards' staff. When I've seen him, he's got a little bit of a beanpole look to him. But I see
he's filled out some.
Has he? I see some pro stuff in him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, he was definitely in the top of that heap of about 35, 40 quarterbacks that were there. From a lot of big programs too.
Give me some of the others you were really impressed with.
Drake May really stood out. That's not a surprise, probably anybody who's paying attention. But just physically, he looks the part. Looks like a NFL body, and then his arm and accuracy and just very cool demeanor. I think he was super impressive. Quinn Ewers looked great, which is interesting because you had Quinn Ewers there, you had Arch Manning there. Then you also had Hudson Card, who transferred to Purdue,
right?
Who threw the ball really well. So Texas has a stable of quarterbacks. They lost one to Purdue, but anyway, so those guys really stood out. So I'd say those were kind of the top guys in my opinion there at the camp.
That's interesting. Ewers and Arch Manning, I guess, at some point are going to battle for playing time, whether it's early this year or somewhere down the road. And when I saw Ewers a year ago, he had some rough patches to him.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. So I recognized him initially, seeing on TV and print media with that hair was very distinct. Well, you wouldn't have recognized him. His hair is cut, so he chopped his hair off, and I think had a very clean cut approach. So this may be him trying to evolve his game to match his hair.
So I'm going to ask this one because I don't know. Was David Cutcliffe there?
I did not see him.
Yeah.
No, sir. I'm sure he's been before and probably, been a part of those camps, but I did not see him there.
Yeah. So was this the first time you've been a part of this?
That was the first time, yeah. So they've been doing this for 27 years. First year, I think, was 96. Archie said in our first meeting that it was, let's see, Peyton was in college, Eli was in high school, and Cooper was just out of college when they first started up. And they would start at Tulane back in 96, and Buddy Tevens was the coach there.
Yeah.
Helping them out.
So what do you think was the best thing you learned in the whole process?
Well, I think it was really neat just to see the overall operation and how they ran the camp and developed a fraternity and how they took care of the people who were working the camp, just from, the gear they gave and the food was really good, and they did a great job with sponsorships. It just was a very well-run, professional, well done camp. I mean, it was cool to see all that and just to see it flow so well, because it was like moving an army with those kids going from station to station and to different parts of the campus. I mean, they used every single field space that you could imagine on that campus and did it in a very efficient manner.
What campus is it?
It's in Nichols State in Thibodaux, Louisiana. So,
Wow.
you know, you drive southwest from New Orleans. And I think that's one thing, too, that I learned was how much the Manning family has invested in Nichols State. I think they help provide updates to their stadium and their field and a new athletic complex.
I'm not surprised at that at all. Jonas, give my alma mater a little plug. Opening weekend of the season, August 18th. Where are you guys?
We will be in Knoxville. We're heading to Knox Webb for a great game against them. They were really, really good last year. They lost to Lipscomb Academy in the semifinals of the state playoffs, and they return a number of really good players. They graduated some as well. But BGA and Knox Webb over the past 25 or so years have had some great battles, including state championship games. And so there's some history here. This is also their first game without David Meskey as their head coach in over 30 years. So I think since the mid 80s.
Isn't that
so they're turning over a new leaf.
Isn't that where Chad Pennington went to school?
He sure did. Yep,
Yeah.
He sure did. And their new head coach is Don Mahoney, who coached at Tennessee, I believe, with Butch Jones. Was a O-line coach there. So he's the new head coach at Knoxville Webb.
So home opener 25th?
Home opener 25th. Yep, we play Maplewood.
Okay, I'll be there.
And they have a new coach, so that's, you know, we don't know much about them yet. And you know, I think that's our big Wildcat welcome. So it'll be a great night, a fun night to kick off our home schedule, which will be a great schedule. We host CPA at home. We've got JP2 at home. So there's some really good opponents that are coming to Guffey Brown Stadium this year.
Beautiful. Listen, thank you for sharing this. I've heard a lot about the Manning passing camp over the years, but I've never had anybody on that actually coached. And so yesterday, when you told me that, I wanted to jump all over it.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. Love talking to you, George. And we're working hard to make you proud this year over on Mac Hatcher.
Bingo. By the way, I'll see you on July 16th.
I'm looking forward to it. It's been a great event.
We'll be talking between now and then. Thank you, Jonas.
All right. Thanks, George. Take care.
Jonas Rodriguuez, head football coach at Battleground Academy. Now you say, what's the inside joke? There wasn't one. July the 16th is the next in a series of sports speaker events that we will do, sponsored by Wilson Bank and Trust. And we have loaded up the wagons on this one. This is the day before SEC football media days get underway in Nashville. And I've sort of had this circled for a while. Former Tennessee coach Philip Fulmer, former Vanderbilt coach Watson Brown, of course, a co-host on this show. David Cutcliffe, who did such a great job at Duke. Before that, he was the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. And Tony Barnhart, who I believe is the single foremost authority on Southern college football. They will all be here the night of Sunday, July the 16th. We're going to start it at 5 o'clock, and it's going to be a heck of a session. I don't expect a lot of you this weekend to sign up with the holiday weekend. But when we get back for good next Wednesday, we'll have a show on Monday, but next Wednesday, I'll really start pushing this. If you already know you want to be a part of it, I'm going to tell you, go ahead and get your reservations, because I can tell by the response we had yesterday, close to 100 people signed up yesterday alone for this particular sports speaker series. It's simple. Email me at plastergeorge@gmail.com. Again, plastergeorge@gmail.com. We'll have Ask the Director when we come back. Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 824-5685.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Now that the weather has gotten considerably warmer, there's not a better place to spend a morning or an afternoon than Riverside Golf Links. So you've probably noticed the weather has gotten a lot warmer, and that means a couple of things in Nashville. It means baseball, and it really means golf. And for me, it's a visit to Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. There are now 27 holes, including a 9-hole executive course. If you want tee times or more information, dial them up at 615-847-5074.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between. Discover what Hit City has to offer. Single game tickets are on sale now.
Hello, this is Celeste Middleton, a State Farm agent in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I want to help my neighbors and local businesses be proactive and assess their risk before something unexpected happens. We want you to have a thorough understanding of your coverages to have the best protection when you need it. We can create a personal price plan for you. Our team has over 70 years of experience helping people in Middle Tennessee. We have an awesome team with integrity and provide honest and prompt communication, and we love what we do and genuinely care about everyone we work with at our office. Give us a call at 615-895-2700, send us a message at celestemiddleton.com, or walk in at our office at 803 North Thompson Lane in Murfreesboro. We would love to earn your business.
Billy Derrick rejoins us on Monday after a week of vacation. So the old Ask the Director segment is David's by himself with that beautiful Brave shirt. What kind of stuff you got?
I got 2 local questions, and then I'm going to do 2 just broader sports questions. Let's start
Okay.
locally.
Let's do.
First, obviously the news coming out of NFL headquarters yesterday was not good for the Titans. NPF is going to be suspended for the first couple games, multiple games of the season. I think it's six games of the year. The more pressing need as of right now for the Titans, is it offensive linemen and trying to find somebody to plug and play or get backup depth on the line? Or is it the wide receiver market trying to get DeAndre Hopkins here to Nashville? Which one is the more pressing issue if this team wants to compete for a division title?
I'd say it's pretty close to equal, to be honest. That's sort of a cop-out answer, but they don't have any margin for error at offensive line. And so this suspension is a killer. In some years you could kind of plug in other stuff, but we know from a year ago that they didn't have that luxury to do a lot of plugging in. They've done the best they can, but this is a gut punch. The wide receiver thing is, in my mind, of their own doing. I don't know how they could justify that their first receiver was the 7th round pick out of UT Martin. I just, to me, that felt a little bit tone deaf, like they really didn't understand the issue. And the issue is right now it's the worst receiving core in the league. Now, it doesn't mean
it's not even close.
Right. It doesn't mean it has to stay that way, because there's some young guys that could make some upward progression. But to me, that question's about dead even.
At this point, do you try to convince maybe Ben Jones or Taylor Lewan to come back and try to plug them on the line? Or is this something that they're going to wait until training camp is over with and people make their roster cuts and go pick somebody up at that point?
It's a really good question. I ran into Taylor Lewan a couple of months ago, and I think he wanted the opportunity to maybe come in on a bargain deal. He didn't sound like he was ready to retire. To my knowledge, he hasn't filed anything like retirement papers. I don't think Ben Jones has either. I mean, I'm sure that they're sitting in a room just like this, asking themselves these same questions.
Absolutely. I'm going to transition. We're going to stay in state, but we're going to head down to Memphis.
Are we?
We are. They have a little problem child, as you like to say, of their own, and his name is Ja Morant. He's going to be suspended for a good chunk of their games this season. But the Marcus Smart edition, a veteran player who's been in this league, gritty, hard-nosed player, from what we know, a good teammate, really the heart and soul of that Celtics team.
Yeah.
How do you feel he's going to do? What is he going to do to help Ja Morant maybe mature as a man and be a better teammate, better citizen, overall member of the league?
I wonder what kind of mindset Marcus Smart will have, because to me, it felt like he was almost born to be a Boston Celtic. I mean, he was the glue to that team. And first of all, I'm shocked they made this deal. I'm talking about the Celtics. I'm shocked they got rid of him. You know what the Grizzlies are trying to do, which is hoping that some of Marcus Smart and his intelligence and his love of the game will, wear off on Ja Morant. How much success he has, seems to me it's up to Ja Morant.
Do you think that the Grizzlies are even a playoff team with him sitting out 20-plus games next year? No Dylan Brooks. He's going to be a free agent. They've come out and said, we're not going to re-sign him. He's going to move on. With Jaren Jackson and Marcus Smart, is that a playoff team?
I don't know. That's a really good question. A year ago, I thought it was really strange how good their record was when Ja Morant didn't play. And I was like, how's that the case? Was it that I don't know. I mean, I don't pretend to know whether Ja Morant was more of a negative at times than he was a positive, because what I saw on the court, he's really good. I mean, he's one of the great players in that league. I just don't know the answer.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I would think they would be in the first half of the season trying to tread water to be in that 5, 6, 7, or 8 hole, and then try to make a surge when they get Ja Morant. It's almost like they get a trade deadline addition. But, boy, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Marcus Smart.
Yeah, and the West is so loaded. I would say of the conferences, 1 through 10, it's really – and, the Spurs are going to get better. They might not be a playoff team, but Victor Wembanyama is going to help make them better. And probably not to the point where Tim Duncan kind of switched their record by like 30-something games. They made the playoffs, and Duncan made first-team All-NBA. But that West is loaded. Let's stay in the NBA, and this is going to be an interesting question for you because you like to talk about Harden and Kyrie. Those two guys really are the main attractions this offseason. There is no stud free agent. Kyrie can opt into his contract and get a max deal with Dallas. But we heard yesterday that he's going to visit the Phoenix Suns and maybe team up with Kevin Durant again. I'm not sure Kevin Durant will be looking forward to that. But of the two, between Kyrie Irving and James Harden, you would have to acquire by trade. If you had to pick one of those guys, and I know you want to say neither, but if you had to pick one of those guys to help try to push your team in a playoff run and maybe win a championship, which of those two guys are you picking?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think you have to go, let's say you're Phoenix. It seems to me you've got to go to the big three and say, okay, we have both of these options. Danny Evans talked about this yesterday on the show, that he would, as a GM, get some of his leadership on a team and say, here are the options. Tell me what y'all think. Okay, I'd want to know from Durant, do you want him or do you not? And if Durant says, I don't want him, then there's no way you sign him. I don't know that Booker would have any real past history for a strong opinion, but Durant certainly would. I think I'd have to go to the two veterans. The Kyrie Irving today is the better player, and I think he's the better player by a fairly considerable amount. But I also think, in fairness to James Harden, that Kyrie Irving stirs up more crap than Harden does.
Yeah, Kyrie's issues are off the court. On the court, he's box office.
Yeah.
He can drop you 40 any given night. That's not the experiment didn't work out down there in Dallas with Luka. I think we were so amazed about what they would do offensively. We forgot the lack of defensive presence out of those two. Luka doesn't really guard. Kyrie's really a small guard. But that's interesting to think. You were gone and on vacation when this popped up, and I was interested to see what your take about this was. Chris Paul has been traded to Golden State. He will fit in now with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. We're yet to see because Draymond Green has opted out if they re-sign him. But just talk about that fit. For me, it was a questionable fit for Chris Paul to go to the Warriors, who Steph Curry is a point guard by trade. Now, he can play off the ball and run screens. But I was just questioning, is Chris Paul a good fit for what they're trying to build right now? Let's say Draymond Green doesn't come back. Does Chris Paul fit on that?
All of a sudden, they are so small. I mean, they've got to go get a presence inside that forces the issue some. You can't just go Curry, Klay Thompson, Chris Paul, and it feels like a 6'5" and under team. So if they don't get Draymond Green re-signed,
who's not the biggest guy either, but he's a pesky defender.
Yeah.
We saw it in the series against the Lakers. They could just throw it down to Anthony Davis, and he could get whatever he wanted. They've really struggled to have a big man recently.
Yeah.
So that'll be. Go ahead.
I've wondered if DeAndre Ayton would be a fit in Golden State.
He has not really fit in well. Phoenix gave him that contract,
right?
But he doesn't fit into what their plans are. They're more kind of guard, ball dominant on the outside. But he really did really well with Chris Paul in the pick and roll. Chris Paul is no longer there anymore. So what is his role going to be in Phoenix? But you have to think with the Warriors, that Jordan Poole and Draymond Green incident prior to last season was kind of maybe the downfall and the split of those two.
Seems like it caused what is going on.
And it seemed like Jordan Poole was welcoming that trade to get out of Golden State. So we'll see what happens. We got a comment. We'll see if it's a question. Just complimenting me, I guess.
David is asking some really good questions. He certainly is.
I wonder what questions Billy
Your
would
questions are better than my answers right now.
Yeah.
The NBA free agency is going to be really interesting.
And it's interesting to see which teams, decide to go all in. For instance, if you're the Spurs, they have a ton of cap space now. You have a generational player, as people like to say in quotes, down low now. Do you try to build pieces around them and go through free agency? You could see maybe a Kyrie Irving, but I don't know if he fits.
I can't see Popovich putting up with him.
But if there's anybody who could probably get him to act straight, it could be Pop. But just interesting to see what fits or in schematically, what do the Lakers do? Austin Reeves is a restricted free agency.
I'm signing him back.
He was probably their best player.
Yes.
He was their go-to guy to get a bucket. So,
I am signing him back. He was way better than we ever dreamed.
So I think there's a lot of questions league-wide. The Knicks, we've talked about the Knicks desperately looking for a superstar to go into MSG. What do the Heat do? They're probably a Damian Lillard away from being probably the favorite in the East. So there's a lot of questions in the NBA, George.
I'm hoping that Damian Lillard ends up somewhere where he can win a title, where he can contend for a title. He deserves that.
I like Dame because he's never been the type of guy that says, if I can't beat him, I'm going to go join him. I think that's what Kevin Durant got a lot of slack for. We all laud Durant's talent. He's one of the best scorers we've had since Michael Jordan's been in this league. But it's, Dame wants to beat them. He's he loves Portland. He loves that small franchise, and he wants to bring a championship to that city. They've traded CJ McCollum away as Robin. So that's probably not going to happen at this point. So I think we as a league and as an audience, we want to see him chase a championship. So it'll be interesting to see him maybe join up with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero in Miami, and that would be a really good team. So it is interesting to see what Boston's going to do now. You got Porzingis, who is a big down low, but you're losing Marcus Smart, who can really defend.
Porzingis is a loser. Look, this is a guy, he's got a lot of talent. Get his butt on the block where he belongs. He's fallen in love with the three-point line, and as a 7'4" player, He plays more like he's 6'5".
Well, he really blends in if he's going to be sticking at the three-point line of what Boston does. They chunk up a lot of threes. We saw it in the playoffs in Game 7. When it's not falling, they're not going to win. So their ability to hit the three is really their difference. But, speaking of them, they're such a talented team. That duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we've yet to see them kind of fulfill what they want to do. If you're Boston, at what point do you say we might have to break these two up?
I don't know. I just know this. I wouldn't have gotten rid of Marcus Smart, who I think is a huge positive in a locker room, and replaced him with Porzingis, who I think is a big negative.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan.
I don't know how you would fix that roster. I don't know if it's a coaching thing with Udoka in his first year took them to the finals. Obviously,
you don't need much.
Yeah, the talent's there. It's getting that out of them night by night. Brad Stevens took his way from the bench up to the GM spot. But just interesting to see how the storylines out there in the East compared to the West.
After the break, we'll have Plaster Bet of the Day, and then we'll wish all of you a great and safe weekend. Stay tuned.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
Family owned and operated for more than 2 decades, Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you are interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303. Again, that's 615-356-0303, or log on to AlacoFineWoodFloors.com. Alaco Fine Wood Floors, serving Middle Tennessee's hardwood flooring needs since 1995.
At Baird, we have a different slant on global financial advice. That global capabilities mean nothing without personal attention. We have investor relationships in 35 countries and market expertise in over 40 industry verticals, all to help make the most important investment connections of all, yours. Global financial advice with a client-first approach. It's the shape of things to come. Discover the Baird difference at BairdDifference.com.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome back in. Final segment on a Friday. Plaster's Bet of the Day presented to you by Bart Durham Injury Law Firm. They are, simply put, the best in the business. They are lawyers you can trust. So give them a call at 615-242-9000 or log on to bartdurham.com. For George last night, he had to wait for a 2.5-hour delay.
Yeah, how about that?
In Colorado, but the Dodgers were just all over the Rockies last night. I think it was
Smoked
like
them.
6-run fourth inning. JD Martinez stayed hot, worthy of his National League All-Star bid, but George got another win. He was 500 for the week.
So, in theory, we're going to get to 200 victories tonight.
Speaking it into existence.
I hope so. I'm taking what I think is one of the really good young teams in baseball. I'm taking the Baltimore Orioles at home tonight against Minnesota. Minnesota leads a crummy division, but Baltimore is the better team. They just simply are better than the Twins. And I think they're going to get themselves a win tonight, and we are going to get to 200 victories in the calendar year.
Book it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Always ask the pitching matchups. Did you check the pitching matchups?
Yeah.
As long as it's not Sonny Gray or Pablo Lopez, I think you might be good.
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was Sonny Gray.
It would be too soon. Hopefully
I'd
it's
love
not
to
Lopez.
tell you.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but go O's.
Okay, we'll go with it.
Listen, all of you have a safe, kind of weird vacation weekend in that Monday is the 3rd, so we'll all have Tuesday the 4th off. We'll have a show Monday, then we'll have a show Wednesday, and then we'll really start beating the bongo drums about our college football Legends Night here at the Fordyce Center in Bellevue. For David Wilson, for, Bob Kesling, for Jonas Rodriguez, for Mark McGee, George Plaster. Have a great weekend. So long, everybody.